Okay, the second type of protist are the algae or plant-like protists. They go through photosynthesis to make food and to provide energy for themselves. And there are 6 main types of plant-like protists. 3 are unicellular, 3 are multicellular, and some of these you'll be able to see on the microscope. These are not plants because they do not have roots, stems, or leaves. There's the red algae, brown algae, and then the 4 types of green algae, one of which is multicellular. And in fact, it's called the multicellular sheets, or a common name is ulva, and sometimes it's commonly called sea lettuce or leaf lettuce. But it is a type of algae or seaweed. So red algae, brown algae, and the ulva are all seaweed. So seaweed are not plants. They are a protist. The other type of green algae, which is unicellular, are the volvox, which is a colony of a bunch of green algae all living together, and you'll be able to see that under the microscope. There's some flagellated green algae, which move by flagella, and then there's the filamentous green algae called spirogyra. And I have 2 slides set up of the spirogyra. It's called that because the chloroplasts spiral down this algae. You can see it in the picture here, and you'll be able to see it in the microscopes. There are other green algae which are a mix of plant and animal. They are plant-like because they go through photosynthesis, so they have chloroplasts. They are animal-like because they have to move, usually to get to the sun so they can go through photosynthesis, or sometimes they're also moving to get food. So sometimes these animals eat, or they're not animals, these protists eat like an animal, but yet they can also go through photosynthesis like a plant. They also move to get to the sun or the food like an animal. And there's 3 different types of the mixed algae. The first one we're going to talk about is euglena. I have 2 microscope slides set up for this. Obviously they're going to live in water. They can make food through photosynthesis and they can eat food. They move by a flagella, and that's how they get to the light to make their food through photosynthesis. That's also how they can get to food if they need it. If there's been days and days without sun, they still need food, so they can eat food. So they have plant and animal characteristics. They have something called a photoreceptor near their end of their body towards the flagella. It helps them to detect light, and it's known as an eye spot. And this eye spot is a photoreceptor. It allows them to detect light, to get to the light to go through photosynthesis. Diatoms. Diatoms are another organism that can go through photosynthesis, but they can possibly also move like an animal. They are considered marine algae. They make food for fish, so fish eat these diatoms, so they're a good source of food for fish. As diatoms die, their remains will go to the bottom of the ocean, and they are the main source of silica sand because their cell walls are made of silica, and we use them in scouring powders and other items. They can be found in toothpaste. They, like I mentioned earlier, produce a lot of oxygen. They are the most numerous unicellular algae in the ocean. Sometimes they are called the stained glass windows of the ocean because they can be very pretty, especially under the microscope. Like I mentioned, their remains will accumulate on the bottom of the ocean floor, and we mine them, and we'll use their remains in filtering agents, soundproofing material, and scouring powders. And I mentioned your toothpaste. And another type of algae that is like a plant because it goes through photosynthesis, but like an animal because it moves, is the dinoflagellates, and they move by flagella. They can cause a disease called red tide. When lots of dinoflagellates are in an area together and the temperature is right, they will produce a toxin. And then, again, this is a good source of food for fish, and as fish eat these dinoflagellates, the fish die because of this toxin. And if we were to eat the fish or mussels like clams and oysters that accumulated this toxin, it can harm humans. Now, it harms the fish, like I said, they die, so you're not going to eat dead fish. But the mussels, the clams and the oysters, this toxin doesn't kill them, but it builds up in their muscle, the part that we eat, so we could be eating clams or oysters that would have this toxin. So there are only certain times of the year that people go out and get clams and oysters to eat. And I'm going to read a little bit more about the dinoflagellates. Visitors of tropical waters may be surprised and delighted as they are rowed back to their anchored ship in a dugout canoe after a rousing night ashore. Each time the paddle slides into the water seems to explode with tiny iridescent lights. Even the wake of the canoe is aglow. Objects tossed overboard leave a shimmering trail as they disappear into the briny depths. It seems like magic, but is the magic of the dinoflagellates, or meaning whirling flagella. Some of the dinoflagellates are also responsible for another dramatic and far more dangerous phenomenon called the red tide. When conditions are right, such as with a sudden increase in mineral nutrients, certain dinoflagellates multiply to incredible densities called blooms. The species with reddish pigment may also contain a potent nerve poison, and the results of their periodic blooms spell death for enormous numbers of fish. The water turns a rusty or blood color, because of the color of the dinoflagellate, and fish by the thousands go belly up. Clams, oysters, and mussels are unaffected by dinoflagellates, but they can accumulate the poisons, making their flesh toxic to humans. The illness is called mussel poisoning, can be quite serious and even fatal. Since this is primarily a summertime problem, when these blooms would happen because it's warm out, so certain mineral nutrients are multiplying because of the warm weather, people who collect their own seafood generally avoid clams, oysters, and mussels in months without an R: May, June, July, and August. Okay, the third type of protist are the fungi-like protist. They're not fungi, but they seem like it. These are slime molds, water molds, and downy mildew. Like fungus, they decompose organic material, but unlike fungus, they can move around at some point in their life cycle. Here's a picture of a slime mold. It may be a little bit hard to see, but the slime mold is on some dead leaves and wood. They live in shady, damp places. They grow on rotting leaves, trees, and logs. It eats while creeping over the surface of decaying matter. Here's the Plasmodium slime mold. Here's some more Plasmodium. There's an amoeba-like slime mold, sometimes called dog vomit slime mold. And this slime mold almost looks like a cherry cobbler. Water molds and downy mildew. Fuzzy decomposers that live in water and moist places. A water mold was a major issue in Ireland. A water mold killed all of the potatoes, and in the mid-1800s, like around the 1840s, the main source of food for a lot of people, especially through the winter, was potatoes. So this water mold killed their source of food. They had no food to eat. So the potato famine came about in Ireland, and a lot of people were dying because of the potato famine, all due to this water mold in the ground killing the potatoes. And it so happens at this same time in the 1840s, a lot of these people from Ireland decided to immigrate into the United States. 1840s, Industrial Revolution, and we had jobs for them here in the United States. So it was like a win-win situation. Ireland, the water mold killed the potatoes, caused the famine, people starved to death. So instead of dealing with that, they chose to immigrate to the United States. They had jobs here for them, and some of them became very successful. And here's just a picture of a downy mildew, which is considered a plant parasite.